Okay, hello. Let's see if YouTube has fixed their issue. Yep. Yep. Looks good. Okay. So I thought, let's see. I hate this new thing up in the top here. Very annoying. Um, so, we were talking about. Let's see, what were we talking about? Oh, nice. We have another. Oh, oh, that's nice. Huh. Oh, that's awesome. Look at that. And I got to share it with you. I have to share this with Adam. That's really okay. If you don't know, this is the original author, Michel. I think he kind of dropped a little bit out of open source, touching grass. uh, but yeah, he originally built MobX. I now remember I was at the same conference when he introduced it as Mobservable, and it just didn't stick. I don't think people got it, uh, and me included. And I was presenting Cerebral, a really bad presentation. But yeah, so and then yeah, he did Immer, which was really great. Yeah, he's a amazing. Like he has this like, should I put it? I think he's like a fiddler. Like he just likes to play around with stuff, but he has an amazing ability to actually convert that into value. I wonder if it's a quantity quality thing. Like he just creates a shit ton of stuff, and he has like frequent ideas, and then there's a couple of those ideas that really had value, like Mobex and Immer. Or if he actually like thinks this stuff through. Uh, but yeah, it's um, it's he's had a really like positive impact on the ecosystem. That's for sure. Um, what were we doing? Yes, we were going to talk about data fetching, and no, wait, we were going to just summarize this thing. So I haven't like made any new thoughts on this. Like I want to like convey this in a better way. And I want to also make the documentation so that you like you can either go down like embracing React, and if you use the React compiler, you're not gonna have performance issues. So that's not the reason why you want to do this other thing. But if you prefer like immutable, the waterfall top-down waterfall reconciliation makes a lot of sense to you. You don't mind doing like an update function for changing state with spreading and slicing and dicing and all that stuff. And you're building an app where you want to think about like each URL as an isolated like surgical presentation of a part of your app, right? That makes a lot of sense. But then you have the other one, which is again like this plugin is going to fix performance in this version, but here you think mutable, and you're using the JavaScript mutation API, and you rather think about actually loading up the whole app every time. So this is more a rich client type of application. You load up the full client every time, and you create like the full state of your application. But instead of like loading up all the data and initialize, like loading up all the data, you rather do like more, as I mentioned, you light up different branches of this tree. So if you happen to go to the dashboard component will say, okay, dashboard, I'm subscribing to you now. Go and fetch data and do whatever you need to do for me to show the thing. And then if you move over to settings, the dashboard component would unsubscribe to the dashboard and then start subscribing to settings, and so on and so on. But you kind of have the complete state, and whenever you move between these different pages and stuff, you're still operating within the same like external state management. Anyways, it was just for me to like just reiterate, try a new way to explain it. But in terms of data fetching, there is something that I explored when I built the impact project, and that is, which doesn't quite make sense. Like if you're trying, like this is the thing with Impact React. Like Impact React really tries to fix like a core issue, but the problem is that it fuses too much with React, so you don't have like a clear mental model. And also, like if you're actually consuming React, you would use React Query, right? But if you actually embrace external state management and think of React as just a dumb view layer, you won't do data fetching in your components. You'll do that in your external state store. And typically data fetching can be like quite straightforward, but it's nice to have like these APIs coming off of React Query is very, very nice. This concept of a query that you revalidate, and this idea of a mutation where you get the like the actual data you pass on the mutation to be used as optimistic data. All of that stuff is really, really awesome. But of course, there's more to React Query in terms of like, if you refocus the window, like there's tons of stuff inside React Query, and it's not about like recreating that, but it's to create something that encapsulates the same idea in an external state management tool. So, so I discussed a little bit with Adam, and we just, well, I guess I can show it to you. Our conversations aren't like secret. So where is this? Yeah, so we talked about, yeah, we don't have to do everything, but it's basically giving a state like explicit, it will be implemented as explicit states. But this is kind of the idea, so that when you do reactive, you can say reactive query, you can give it a callback for fetching the data. And if you have, and then you have a reactive mutation, and you can just give it the function that actually does the mutation, which is super, super duper nice. And we're going to implement that now and play around with it. But if we have time to play around with it, well, at least we're going to start the implementation. Now, the tricky thing is, yeah, maybe we can talk about it as we implement, because if we move to this query, so this query is going to have a generic, is the code, I should make it a little bit bigger, something like this. So this T is the stuff you're going to fetch. Yeah, kan dere være der ute? Skal jeg sette på gaming? Yep, just 2 seconds. Ok, så skal du leke, og Oskar skal game? Men går det at du leker her ute i stua her, Esker?
Ja, jeg kan lese leke her.
Ja, men jeg holder på med det, skjønner du. Det litt weird at du gjør det. Nei, jeg skal ikke.
Det er de skallene. Hør så.
Right, sorry. Let's see. So we have the fetcher, which is yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna just 2 seconds. Sorry. All right, sorry. The youngest has a friend over. They wanted to play Rocket League, which I can understand. Okay, so what's interesting about this is that we're going to use this like constructor explicit states pattern to actually implement this as well. So the question is only that we need a query, and that query. Okay, so we're going to start with these statuses: fulfill or status rejected. Yeah, and we can choose these statuses. I want to say resolved because it's like it is a promise. And then when it's resolved, we actually have the value. Then if it's rejected, we're going to have an error. And this is really, yeah, I actually saw in the presentation. We should call this error. Make sure that there is an actual error. So, but we're going to have more stuff here. So when it's resolved, you should be able to refetch. And when it's resolved, you should be able to know if it is, or revalidate, sorry, revalidate, is revalidating. And this is a Boolean behind the scenes so that while it's revalidating, you don't want to change, like it's still resolved, right? And you don't want, and a thing here is that, do you want the component to reconcile, right? Does it make sense to reconcile? So when you call revalidate, nothing should reconcile, right? Well, is revalidating will be true. Yeah, that should reconcile. Anyways, so, and then you should be able to revalidate if you're rejected as well. So that means it's only when it's pending. So this is the thing I'm wondering, like, does it even make sense to... So the only thing... You know, I wanna try something. So we're gonna have a base state here. Oh, sorry. And so I want to say that you can always revalidate. And you should always, okay, so you should always be able to revalidate. And there's also a thing called fetch or something. So fetch would actually give you, so when you consume it from a component, like the question is, when do you actually fetch the data? Do you fetch the data immediately? Nei, dere kan ha sånn trening, Oskar. Det er best det. When do you start fetching the data? And that's what I discussed with Adam. And we talked about, where is it? I think I have it at the end here. So the idea is that you really have two ways to get. Ja. Nei. Dere kan spille sånn trening. Yeah. The question is, when do you start actually running the request? So, and it's problematic because it has to do with when do you actually reconcile the component as well. Because you don't want to, like, if you don't fetch immediately, you want to start fetching as you're trying to read the value. You don't want that to cause, or technically, you can't make that cause another reconciliation. It's going to break. So it has to do the fetch as you're reading the value. But that means you have to, you know what, it can actually return this. But that means you can't change the state when you go from haven't fetched yet to fetching, which is kind of annoying. So, but what you can do is, like, you can just start in a pending state, but it didn't start fetching yet. And then you have these explicit methods. So promise would just be a promise of t. Ja. Ja, du kan godt ta de på, men må ikke skru de på, tror jeg, for da... Ja. Det går bra, Eskil. Okay, this wasn't such a good idea. Anyways, so you need ways to read this, because even though you're gonna rely on these statuses to render components, you don't care about these statuses inside your state management tool. Inside your state management, you just care about the promise. So you need a way to grab the promise, and that can be a promise. That's fine. And then, but from a component, you also need to be able to start fetching as you're trying to read the state, as you're trying to read this. So that could be fetch. The only problem is that if you haven't called fetch, it's stuck in pending. But if you call promise or you call fetch, we can make sure that it actually starts fetching. But it technically, it's not the right status because it's more idle, right? But if we call fetch during render and then move into from idle into pending, then that's gonna cause another reconciliation while you're doing a reconciliation, which is gonna break. But you never really care about that idle state anyways. But there is like a risk, right? You could just start reading the status of this thing. Like you reconcile and you go and point to the to-dos, for example, and you just check the status pending, and it just stays there forever, right? Like, how do you know that you have to call fetch? I find that to be a little bit iffy. But let's do that for now, at least, just to get started with this. Oh, look at that. I'm gonna write this myself. This is too much fun. So we're definitely gonna start by returning pending. Yeah, and then we're gonna have the actual, and then we're gonna have revalidate, and we're gonna have fetch, and we're gonna have function promise. Validate, fetch, promise. Oh yeah, we just have to fix the implementation. So what we're also gonna have here, we need to have an abort controller. And I think we can just create one. Well, maybe we can do this. So let's start with fetch.
Christian,
Ja. Jeg er litt opptatt, jeg skjønner du, Eskil.
hvorfor kan jeg ha årskallen sin bil også mens han har den fjernklaren han har?
Hva sa du nå? Vil du være i samme bil som Oskar?
Ja.
Å ja. Ja, men vi har ikke tid til å drive og bytte biler og sånn nå, skjønner du, for det er ikke så lenge til dere får spilt. Men er ikke den kul den bilen du har da?
Hvilken?
Den du kjører?
Nei, den var ikke noe kul.
Ja.
Det var bare
Oh. Okay, so when we has
Fire. Christian,
has fetched.
Christian,
Eskil, jeg er litt opptatt, jeg skjønner du, så du må gå ut. For jeg jobber, skjønner du. Sorry. One thing is my own son bothering me when it's the neighbor's kid. God damn it. Oh. I think he got a bit scared after. Anyways, let's see. So if has fetched, we're just gonna return. Oh yeah, sorry. So this is gonna be the actual. This is gonna be the actual query state. So let's just call it query. Reactive. Yeah, and let's put this here instead. And then we're gonna return that query. Or we can call it state, that's fine. So if it has fetched, we're just gonna return the state. Wait, are you still complaining? Oh yeah, sorry. And then has fetched, we're actually gonna fetch the thingy, abort controller. In this state, you cannot really have, you can't have any pending thing. And this is also a question, like what should happen when you call revalidate? Should it abort the current promise and then call it again? I don't know. Do we need an abort controller? Well, if we're gonna do that, we need an abort controller. So let's imagine we're gonna do that. Like there's a surprising amount of choices you have to make. It was very cool presentation. I highly recommend it. It's from, was it from Paris, React Paris or something? The maintainer of React Query talked about decision making and building APIs, and it was very, very good. Anyways, so we want to call our fetcher, and then when we have a value, we want to move into, yeah, first of all, we need to check here if, because maybe you called fetch and then you call revalidate again. And we said that whenever you call revalidate, we're gonna, yeah, and this is gonna be, and we have to change this. So, let's see, we need to rename this. So this is gonna be current abort controller. And then we're gonna say const abort controller. So we're gonna assign it kind of globally inside, like we're gonna set it inside the scope, but we're also gonna have a local reference to it. So that, so for example, if you revalidate, we're gonna create a new abort controller for the current abort controller, but then this other promise needs to have a reference to the original abort controller to check if it's aborted or not. So we're going to just return there. And if not, we're going to say, and this is the tricky thing, because we can't actually replace the object here. We have to actually just change the values. So what we kind of have to be careful with is that we actually, yeah, and this is also the typing here is gonna be icky. Because as I said, we can't really replace this thing. So we have to manually like set every property, which is like not ideal. But it's the only way to kind of make this a smooth API. But what we can do instead is like object. Yeah, and the problem is, one thing is like adding these values. Another thing is, what if you were in an error state and then we move to resolved or just to pending, for example? We want to actually delete the other properties. So I think maybe having a function that, yeah, we're going to create a function that kind of updates it. So update state, and then we're going to have new state. Well, it's not partial. We're actually going to have, well, it kind of is partial, but it's not like partial. Let's see. So let's call this status, type status. So this is the union of the things. And the query is actually with the status, and then this update. Yeah, so let's call this update status. That's going to be nice. New status, and that's going to be status T. And then, yes, so now we can say, what I do wonder though is how MobX handle this. Does MobX have any kind of batching? It would be kind of nice to have that. MobX batch changes. I don't think it's really needed. Batch transactions. Yeah, I think it's a transaction I'm thinking of. But without running any reactions until the end. Yeah, so let's use a transaction there. So we're going to do transaction, and we're going to actually delete state. Well, we don't need to delete the status, but we need to delete state error and delete, and then we're going to call it any state. Let's just do any. Oops, sorry. So it's just for the typing, and we're going to delete the value. So these are the things that we want to get away from it. And then we can actually object assign new status. We can assign that also to any state. So this is just a way for us to efficiently, yeah, do this. So update status. That's much nicer. And then we have the error. Rejected error. Cool. And is it happy with, oh yeah, sorry. And then we're going to return status. Oh, sorry. I guess we're going to return state. Yeah, and maybe we could actually return query T. So we're gonna actually return any state here. Just for typing. Okay, but we're not gonna return. Yeah, so in this state, like when we do the original fetch, we are in a pending state already, so we can just return the state as is. But we also need to check the abort controller here. Cool. And then when we revalidate, we're gonna look at the current abort controller and we're gonna abort it so that we can go in and perform the fetch, and maybe we can just call that what are we gonna call that one? Run fetcher. Run. Ugh, I don't know. And the board controller should be inside run. We're gonna run. And you know, we should be able to do update status pending. Well, now this is, no, we shouldn't do that. Let's see. So this thing should decide what the state is. And we know that it's going to be pending here. Well, will always be pending. Well, the question is, do you call revalidate before you call fetch? Like, this is... because if you call revalidate, yeah, if not as fetched, return fetch. And then oh, and that's an dag nugget. So calling you know what we're gonna do instead? We're not gonna do this. We're gonna do yeah, we're not gonna do this. Update status. Let's see. So this is going to be query T. This is the update. So this is going to be a partial. Yeah, this needs to. There are only certain things we want to update here, which is revalidating is also a thing. Okay, so let's just do a partial. And the responsibility here is just to like efficiently update this state. Like this is a little bit, I wouldn't call it hacky, but it's like but this doesn't need to be a callback. This can just be a partial. Yeah, sorry, doesn't need to be a callback. Why is this angry? Oh, is it the update? We'll figure that one out. Oh yeah. There we go. Cool. And then we have revalidate. And if it hasn't fetched yet, we're gonna fetch. And then we're gonna say run. Like if that's not the case, we're gonna run. And the thing is, you might call Yeah, and if has fetched, yeah, it's just gonna return the state. No, because yeah, it's just gonna return the state. But that means, yeah, but then it should actually abort. Okay, so when we run, it's gonna abort. Okay, fine, we're good. And then return update. Yeah, we're gonna call this update state now instead. Update state. And this is gonna be, this is not gonna be, okay, what's this gonna be then? I guess we want to still have the same status. But we're going to say is revalidating. Why can't I? I shouldn't have. Wait. Query. Why don't I get the typing for that? Run? What the hell? What did I do? This is weird. What kind of typing is that? And if I do this, suddenly... Oh, that was weird. Okay. Yeah, implicit return type. We have to do this because we have some self-referencing. Okay, cool. And then we have the promise. Yeah, so that's the thing. We also need, we don't only need the current abort controller. Why is this always... Oh, sorry. Didn't I have an abort here? Oh, interesting. Abort. We also need a reference to the current promise. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. Current promise. So what I don't quite like about this is that we're making assumptions about the state of these two variables based, like there's no strong typing here for when these are actually available, which is gonna lead to bugs. I'm sure of it. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, because now we can do... Yeah, that's a cool self loop thing. But again, it's like, I know that it's going to change synchronously to... Yeah, I don't quite like this. It's like if it hasn't fetched, that's the only time we don't have a promise. And we don't have current abort controller. So what I want to do instead, I'm going to create internal state. Type internal state, which means status idle or status active. And when it's active, then we always have an abort controller and we always have a promise. I think this is going to help us. So we, instead of doing this, we're going to have let state status idle. Oh, internal state. Internal state. And then we're going to drop these and we're going to rather say, ja, var det det? Hvor fant du den da? Ja, kan du snakke med mamma om det? Du må dele med Eskil da. Men gi den til mamma du, så hjelper hun deg. Jeg vet ikke hvem den er sin, skjønner du. Ok. Snakk med mamma, så hjelper mamma deg, ok? Let's see. So, let's see. If internal status equals active, then we're just going to return the state. Or we're going to say the internal state equals status active. How are we going to express this? Yeah, maybe we should actually abort controller. Do we need an abort controller? Yeah, we do. This is tricky. Oh, but maybe we can rather do this. Run. So run is going to give us yeah, so we're going to allow run well, the point is okay. If internal state is active, we're going to abort the current thing. And then we're going to return, or first we're going to create a new abort controller. New abort controller. Let's remove this. And then we're going to take this and we're going to shove it onto this thing. So this is going to return new internal state. It's always active. We're going to give it the abort controller and we're going to give it a promise, which is going to be this thing. Oh yeah, we need to return a value. Yeah, and this is also going to be interesting because it depends how you consume it, how the browser is going to react to rejections. So if we throw the error here, we might get an uncaught exception. And there is a way to handle this. The reason I know this stuff is because I worked on it in the other implementation. It's not like super intuitive. This is crazy complex stuff. But what we can do, we can say const promise equals that thing, and then we're going to just do promise here. And then we're actually going to add we're just gonna add a catch handler here. Just to ensure browser does not throw and handle promise rejection. Because the reason is that you might be only consuming this from a component, and in the component you're not actually handling the catch, right? You're just handling the status of being rejected. But if you consume it as an actual promise, you do want it to throw, because you want to do a try catch, right? Okay, not sure why. Promise can be void, T, or undefined. Okay. How? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Return value. Throw error. Yeah. Wait, how does this work? Do we actually... how did I do that in the other implementation? Impact. Query. So create observable promise. Oh, I just return. Oh, but this is using the observable promise. Let's see. Here we are. Resolve value. Okay, I just return. Yeah, okay. Okay, something to explore. I'm not sure if I should throw here, but if I... So if I consume this promise, so what could happen is like inside the state management, I might be consuming this pending promise wait, and then oh yeah, I think this should be new error aborted. Yeah, and this is also going to be throw new error aborted. Yeah, but but it's true. Like you might be revalidating it. Well, so yeah, inside your state management, you're consuming the promise and you're awaiting it. It just happens to be, but you can't. No, we shouldn't do this. We should return the value because this represents an is revalidating. So we should return the stale value. Ja? Nei, nå er det ikke noe mer gaming. Nei. Hallo! Du, vær forsiktig med utstyret ditt. Det er kvelden vi skal. Hei. Du, ikke begynn. Ikke begynn sånn. Du. Det her er ikke greit. Hvis du skal være sånn, så må du gå litt. Det er ikke greit, Oskar. Ja. Tycker att pappa ska skruva. Du med mig tjänst att skruva, okej? Nu går till mamma nu. Okay. He was pissed. Can understand that. Yeah, so we if you were to consume a promise that's stale, you should still get the value, the stale value. But if you consume a stale, okay, you know what? I think we should actually, I think we need to keep track of the latest value as well. Or like, how does that work in React Query? Like, if you get an error, do you still have access to the last value? Or is it like in an actual error state? We return the stale value. But this shouldn't matter. Like, no, we should throw the error. Yeah, so this is like a stale error, I guess. Yeah, let's do that. And then internal state equals idle. I'm gonna return fetch. Or we're gonna do, what was run? Yeah, we're gonna do internal state equals run. And how did it update internal state? Yeah. And then we're going to update that state to whatever the status was and is revalidating true. And then it's the same here, internal. Okay, we won't have time to actually test this, but yes, we're it's a very long story. But this is basically so MobX is one of the more popular external state management tools. Like when you have that mental model of building your app as a state management implementation and data management implementation, and then you use React as just a dumb view layer. That's a type of app development that I've been using a lot because I've been working a lot on several like very complex, rich clients. And then what we're doing here is that we're simplifying MobX so that you only have a single reactive primitive. You don't have like observable, make auto observable, computed reaction, all of this stuff. You just have a single reactive primitive, and then you use a plugin for observation so that it becomes completely transparent. And then since you're doing external state management, you're also doing external data management. And there's a lot of nice ways in React to do data management, especially React Query. So we're just exploring how those ideas would apply to external data management using MobX. Yeah, I guess that's the short story or the summary. Yes, and then we can return the promise like so. What? Oh, it's revalidating. Well, I guess we can say it's true. Okay, cool. But that's like, that's the implementation for now. There are like decisions that needs to be made here. Maybe some of it doesn't make sense, but implementation wise, it should be pretty nice. And then the interesting thing is mutation. Web programming, you go to you go to frontendmasters.com. This is where you start. This is an amazing resource, and I want to recommend, it depends on what motivates you the most. You can like jump straight into React to actually learn, like actually create something. But then you can jump into the JavaScript courses as well to really understand how JavaScript works. But that's like more low level. But yeah, this is where you learn it. There's also a Norwegian. I'm from Norway, and there's a Norwegian startup that has a much more interactive way to learn that you could also try. But yeah, these are the two oh, didn't pick it up. These are the two resources I would recommend. Cool, but I have to jump off the stream now. It's getting later. I need to get the kids prepped for bed. So yeah, we're gonna do another stream tomorrow morning, and then we're gonna finish exploring this and actually test it. So that's gonna be fun. Cool. Thanks for following along, and have a nice evening, or morning, or day, or wherever, whatever, wherever. Bye-bye.